What's up, Undisputed listeners? It's your boy, Shay Sharp. I wanted to tell you about my new podcast, Club Shay Shay, where we always do something before two something. Each week, I sit down with a guest for a drink and conversation, and as host and proprietor of Club Shay Shay, I've welcomed in esteemed guests such as Snoop Dogg, Floyd Money Mayweather, LeVar Ball, Isaiah Thomas, just to mention a few. Whether I'm talking to an athlete, a musician, an actor, or a lifelong friend, Club Shay Shay is a place where people share inspiring and motivational stories about their journeys to prominence. The new episode drops every Monday on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe to Club Shay Shay now and make sure you never miss a new episode. Now back to Undisputed.
Welcome to the Undisputed Podcast. I'm your host, Jenny Taft. This podcast is the full show from today's episode of Undisputed from start to finish. We've got a busy slate, so Skip, Shannon, let's get to it.
Welcome to Undisputed. We are live from Los Angeles. I'm Jenny Taft here with Skip Bayless and Shannon Sharp. Happy Friday, guys. Good morning. How are we?
We're good, old GM Braun. I see old GM Braun up to his tricks again.
You know, speaking of LeBron James and last night's All-Star selections, Shannon Sharp, allow me to open today's show by saying something very nice about your man, LeBron James. I honestly, from my heart, with all sincerity, thought he was great last night because he was so entertaining, so enlightening with the detail he gave with each selection, and he lived up to being the face of this league. Congratulations, LeBron James.
Oh.
Yes, Skip, he did a great job. Remember, he started off saying, well, there's no free agents now, so I guess I can just go ahead and pick my team. I want to pick it. I can't get charged with tampering.
Exactly.
Oh.
Way to go.
Well, I feel like we should just end the show on that note, Skip. I mean, you compliment LeBron. I have a feeling you had a little bit more to say.
This show should end right now. No, let's go.
So much to get to. Packed Undisputed. Let's talk about that guy LeBron last night. He ended up going with the odds-on favorite. Last night, he took Giannis Antetokounmpo with the first selection in the All-Star draft. So Steph Curry, Luka Doncic, and Nikola Jokic round out LeBron's starting five. Damian Lillard, Chris Paul, and Paul George highlighted Team LeBron's bench. But Kevin Durant predictably took Nets teammate Kyrie Irving with his team's first pick. And since Katie won't be able to play, he drafted four other starters that included Joel Embiid, Kawhi Leonard, Bradley Beal, and Jason Tatum. So Durant's bench was highlighted as well by James Harden, Zion Williamson, and Donovan Mitchell. So many names there. Really incredible teams. But Shannon, in your opinion, who picked the better team here?
Well, Skip, I really like LeBron's pick. I mean, I was waffling back and forth. I thought, like, you know what, go Giannis. But then I was like, no, he's going to go Kawhi because he's always selected Kawhi, and Kawhi's been on his team, and they've won all 3 years. But you can't argue with Giannis being the number one overall pick. And the decided advantage that he has, Skip, is that when you select first, you get 4 of the top 7 picks. So, you know what I'm saying? So he kind of puts KD in a bind because KD, you know, to keep the peace down in the locker room, Skip, he's going to take his own guy. Okay, you take Kyrie. I've already gotten Giannis. I'm a little surprised that he took Steph Curry, but I think he took Steph, Skip. In all of his All-Star games, he's never gotten an opportunity to play with Steph. He was like, I wonder what it would be like to actually play with a shooter like Steph. My ability to penetrate, Giannis' ability to penetrate, Luka, and to just have to be a part of that. And so I think that's one of the reasons why he chose, because remember, Skip, we were talking about it yesterday. Is he going to take Steph or is he going to take Luka? And lo and behold, he's able to get both of these guys and get Yoke.
Yep.
So I thought his team, he did a great job of selecting his team. The thing that hurts Kevin Durant's team, Skip, is Kevin Durant's not playing.
I agree.
That's the biggest drawback against his team, is that he's not going to be on the floor. Now, had he been able to play, we might be having a different discussion currently, Skip, because I do like his squad. He got a nice, rounded out his squad rather nicely. But I think it's him not playing is what I would say gave LeBron the advantage. And I think the sports books and everybody, Fox Bet, I think they got LeBron team opening up as a 3.5, 4-point favorite. So I love LeBron team. They got shooting. They got nice size. I know everybody's talking about, Skip, the Utah Jazz has the best record in the NBA, and their 2 best players get picked last, Skip. It's like being the tallest guy at the schoolyard, and somehow you manage getting picked last when you're a foot taller than everybody else. So I thought they had fun with that, but I really liked the LeBron team. I mean, Luka, Steph Curry, Giannis, Jokic, LeBron, and then Skip, I told you, first pick of the second round, he took Dame Lillard. He has a really nice team that can really shoot the ball, has nice size. So I really like his squad.
Okay. Speaking of really being able to shoot the ball, I heard Shaq say last night on TNT as he got his first look at LeBron's total squad, he said, I really like his starting lineup because of the shooting. And you just pointed to the shooting. And so I'm going to focus on the shooting or lack thereof. So let's look at LeBron's starting lineup. Is Luka a shooter? No, he's a lousy shooter. Is Giannis a shooter? No, he can't shoot a lick. Is LeBron James really a shooter? Is that what he does? No. I'll give you just below average, but he's certainly not even an average shooter. So let's look harder even at Steph's year so far. And you said wanted to play with Steph because he's the ultimate shooter. Well, over his career he has been, but this year he's not been up to snuff as a shooter because his career average from three is 43%, and he's 2 percentage points lower at 41, which obviously by most human standards is still excellent. But he's not been Steph. He started off the year with 2 straight 2 out of 10 performances from three. He's had a 1 of 10 night. He's had a 1 of 11 night. And just the other night against Portland, he was 5 of 14. 5 of 14. So he's been as cold as he has been hot this year. And yet we saw that crazy video, which I can't even believe it, that a human could do this. But we saw him make 105 straight threes. It was the corner three, obviously, which is a little bit easier, but still 105 in a row. And yet, Shannon, sometimes on the biggest stages, Steph can go as cold as he can hot. And remember a couple of years back, the three-point contest when it was back in his hometown of Charlotte, he lost in the finals to Joe Harris, who's now emerging a little bit more each year as a Brooklyn Net. But still, he came up by Steph's standards small. So I don't know if he's a slam dunk teammate as a three-point shooter or as a scorer. I don't know whether he'll light it up or get lit up. He comes and goes as a shooter to me. And then look at Luka now.
What about this format, though, Skip?
All right. Yeah.
What about this format, all-star format? There are going to be no double teams. Guys are going to be getting wide open shots. Skip, you know, like the first 3 quarters is really up and down. Guys are not playing any defense, and then they focused on defense in the fourth quarter.
Okay.
But so now you got Giannis driving to the basket to dunk it. So guys are going to try to get the ball out of his hands. So I think Steph getting wide open looks. Just because you got to understand, Skip, Klay Thompson is not in Golden State. So who do I have to worry about?
Okay.
Steph Curry. Are you really worried about Kelly Oubre or Kent Bazemore or some of these other guys? Draymond's not going to score. Draymond has more assists than points. So the only focus is Steph Curry.
Okay, I got you. And that's a fair and valid point for you. But the point is, Steph can go either way. I don't know if I trust him even on wide open looks to go crazy hot because he can go crazy cold. And then Luka, I've been telling you again and again. So right now, Luka ranks 122nd in the NBA in three-point shooting, yet he's got this runaway popularity bandwagon that I can't quite wrap my head around. And that's his 122nd ranking this year is up from 140th in three-point shooting a year ago. And then look at Giannis. He's been horrible from three. He's 28.5%. That ranks dead last of 162 three-point shooters. Not that Giannis in the All-Star game is going to take a bunch of threes, but he might try a couple. And then LeBron, as we speak, he ranks 119th in three-point shooting, and his 69% from the free throw line ranks 103rd in the NBA. So it's not like LeBron's a deadly shooter. He can get on a hot jag sometimes, but I don't know. Is that a hot shooting lineup? Are they going to feed off
Skip,
each other and just
I
be
think you-
bearing threes after threes after three? I don't
Skip,
see it.
Look, you're overanalyzing it, Skip. This is not the NBA Finals. This is an all-star game format. Guys are going to be getting up and down. Their shots are going to be wide open. In the first 3 quarters, you're probably going to see 40 dunks between the two teams. Guys are going to get wide open look because LeBron is going to be looking to drive the ball and kick. So is Giannis. But they still have other guys. What happens if they come in with Dame Lillard, Steph Curry, Paul George? So you bring that lineup in with LeBron and Luka.
Okay.
And so you think we got shooters on the court now? Do we got shooters with Dame Lillard, Steph Curry, and Paul George? Or do we have any shooters with that?
Damian Lillard right now ranks 82nd in the NBA in three-point shooting. I know he's made some big clutch shots, but 82nd in overall three-point shooting.
Did you watch him last night? Did you watch him last night?
I'm just telling you what the number screams back at me. He's below average right now as a three-point shooter. He'll make big ones.
Yeah, so let me ask you a question. If Dame Lillard is 82nd, how many guys of those 81 that's in front of him you would take over him shooting? Name the guys that you're going to take over Dame Lillard.
I don't have to listen from you, but there are probably 20. Okay, not in the last second, unless it's a playoff game. If we start talking playoffs, I'd take a whole lot of people over him. But I'm just saying right here, right now, you're overselling who he is as a consistent three-point shooter. Overselling. And that brings me to Ben Simmons. He's your next pick off the bench. His career from three is 4 of 31. That's 12.8%. I don't know. And then Chris Paul's your next pick off the bench. He ranks 68th right now in three-point shooting in the league, which is pretty good for him. Jaylen Brown ranks 70th in the league in three-point shooting. And that brings me to Pandemic P, who LeBron did choose. And would you believe that Paul George in his last 4 fourth quarters, and you'd be the first to point something like this out, he's 3 of 22 in his last 4 fourth quarters and 1 of 13 from 3, and that includes at Milwaukee, 1 of 9 in the fourth quarter, and at Boston, 2 of 10 in the fourth quarter. So I don't know. It's not like you're getting a red-hot PG right now. Do you love that?
Skip, it's an all-star game. Skip, it's an all-star game. The guys are going to have fun. The guys are going to get up and down. They're going to score somewhere between 130 and 140.
Okay.
That's just the way it is. You understand that. You looking at it like these teams are really going to battle in a 7-game series.
I'm responding to what you just told me. You love LeBron's team more. And I'm saying time out.
Yes, I do.
Time out. Who did KD and again, I give you, if I had KD in the lineup instead of Jason Tatum, it'd be over. You'd be the one who'd be trailing. But he did take Kyrie. Right now, Kyrie is ranked 37th in three-point shooting at 41%. And I'm not sure there's a better clutch shooter in basketball. You can talk Dame all you want, but I'll take Kyrie making clutch shots, big stage, big moments. Bradley Beal is another starter. All he's doing is leading the league in scoring. Kawhi Leonard is simply the reigning All-Star Game MVP. I'll take him. You said LeBron often does take him. And Joel Embiid from the three-point line this year is 42%. That ranks 31st in the league. That's up pretty high for a guy who's 7 feet tall, and he is now the MVP favorite. And coming off the bench is a James Harden making 42.2% of his threes. Devin Booker, who from 10 to 16 feet out has been the deadliest mid-range jump shooter in the league. He's making 55% of his shots from that range.
Skip.
And then speaking of dunks.
Who shoot?
Wait, what about Zion Williamson? He happens to be on KD's team. He might just set the All-Star Game dunks record this Sunday evening. Just wait and see.
But the All-Star Game, Skip, the All-Star Game is dunks, layups, and threes.
Okay.
There is no mid-range shooting.
Well, who says there can't be? Is there a
Booker,
rule? Did they just put in a new All-Star rule? You can't shoot a mid-range?
Skip, you've been watching them. In the last decade, how many mid-range shots have you seen?
I don't know. I don't count them, but you can do whatever you want. If you want to shoot them, you can shoot them, and I will bet you Devin Booker will take some mid-range J's.
I bet you there'll be just as many threes taken as there are twos taken as far as jump shots.
Okay.
You want to bet on that?
Well, that's fine. No, I don't. But if we want to talk three-point shooting, your man LBJ is often LB no J from three because he's on a terrible going south jag of three-point shooting.
He's shooting 36%, Skip.
35%, right?
35.8. You round up 36%.
All right. And that's down from that red hot, what was he, 42% for a while? He's a career 34% three-point shooter. He's way below average. And you're trying to tell me his team of shooters is better than KD's team of shooters? I think I just shot big holes in your argument.
No, Skip. I love the shooters that he has. He has guys that can drive the ball himself. Giannis, guys that can drive, put pressure on the interior, and kick the ball out. Can Nikola Jokic shoot threes? So we'll put Joel Embiid outside. So if Joel Embiid does not come outside, do you think Nikola Jokic can make wide open threes? I do. I believe Steph Curry. I get teams double team Steph because he's really their only scoring option in Golden State. They're not really doubling except the last couple of possessions in an all-star game when the game is close and they're really trying to win the game. But Steph Curry is going to get a lot of wide open looks. So will Luka Doncic. Now, I don't expect Giannis to take one or two just cause it's an all-star game. Why wouldn't you? But you know what Giannis does. Giannis normally has somewhere between 5 and 8 dunks in the all-star games that he's participating in. So I expect that theme to continue. LeBron James is always going to get one or two thunderous dunks. So, Skip, look, I don't want to overthink it. You keep talking about scoring. Where is Luka Doncic when it comes to scoring? Where is Dame Lillard? Where's Steph Curry? You make it seem like those guys are averaging 19, 20 a game. They have 3, and Giannis Antetokounmpo. They have 4 of the top 6 or 7 guys as far as scoring. And you talking about they can't score?
Well, I didn't say they can't score, but you're talking about shooters, and I just shot holes in the shooters. And I'm right.
I tell you what, I'll take Dame. Steph Curry is the greatest shooter that's ever breathed on oxygen. Now, you can talk about he hasn't come up big in big moments, but I defy you to find somebody in the history of the game that can shoot the ball better than he could.
Okay, I got it, but I showed you that this year he hasn't been Steph. So I don't know. You're just throwing this at me, and I'm throwing it back at you. And yet, let me close my case by telling you that you are sweeping under your carpet the fact that LeBron James took pandemic P, Paul George, and that should unclose your case because you don't like him. You ridicule him on a daily basis on this show, and your man LeBron just picked him. Am I right?
We picked him. We did pick him. And watch what he does in the All-Star game.
Okay.
I'm not overly concerned. Look, it's an all-star game. Guys are not really trying to close out hard. Like I said, the guys will play really loosey-goosey for the first 3 quarters. In the fourth quarter, they'll clamp it down and try to win the ball game. Now they'll double guys and try to get the ball out of the hot guy's hand. But I'm good. I like what LeBron has. I love Luka. I love Steph.
Are you good with LeBron's explanation for why he chose pandemic P? If we could please hear this for you to respond to.
Okay.
This is the only time I'll root for this guy or this team because we are enemies. Nah, just making fun of it. But I'm going with Paul George, PG-13 from the Los Angeles Clippers.
Shannon. Are you buying that he backed off the fact that they're enemies, or are they enemies? Is he acknowledging enemies?
But think about it, Skip. Look at what they were in the Eastern Conference. Indiana was always trying to knock Miami off. And then when LeBron went back to Cleveland, Paul George was a couple of times in his way. He had to knock him off again. And what if Paul George came to L.A., the team with Kawhi, because he saw what was going on in L.A., and so, yes, when you play in the same building and you are trying to accomplish the same goal, which is win the NBA championships, yes. Now, is it Boston, LA type enemies, Skip like that? No. But I think they're vying for space. Now, even though the Clippers will never supplant the Lakers as far as in LA, but yeah, they're trying for the same things. And yeah, they're enemies. For what you're trying to accomplish And what I'm trying, if I'm going for the same goal as you're going for, hell yeah, you my enemy.
Thank you. So don't try to walk that back, LeBron. Don't give me, no, I'm just kidding. No, he was not kidding. Not only are they enemies, but they are a threat to LeBron. And I believe that's why at that point in the proceedings, he chose Paul George, because I believe LeBron believes in that old slogan about you keep your friends close and your enemies closer. When LeBron is threatened by somebody, he tries to befriend them. He tries to undercut whatever edge there would be between enemies by saying, you come over with me. I chose you to be on my team. Let's be nice to each other. And maybe when it comes playoff time, that in the back of his mind, Paul George would be thinking, God, he likes me a lot. He chose me. Maybe I shouldn't clamp down quite as hard on him when I defend him.
Skip, let me tell you something about LeBron James. I've been following this man basically his whole career.
So have I.
The only man that LeBron James feels that can look him in his eye is Kevin Durant. He doesn't view Kawhi as an equal. He does not view Giannis Antetokounmpo. He doesn't view Joel Embiid or Jokic or Steph. The only man that I believe that LeBron James says, okay, you a dog, we can go eye to eye, is Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant views LeBron in the exact same light. So all this other stuff about keep your enemies closest, he never viewed Paul as an adversary or an equal. Maybe as an adversary, but not an equal. Kawhi Leonard, not an equal.
Okay, but what did he do with Kevin going all the way back to that lockout period? Remember, was it the 2012 season? What happened right away? Yeah, what am I hearing? Oh, LeBron is flying to meet with KD, to work out with KD. Remember, they even played flag football together. They were playing one-on-one.
They worked out together, yes.
They did. They did everything together. And it allowed LeBron to have a little edge over KD, who was still just a baby, one of the baby Thunder at that point. And when they did meet in that finals, when LeBron finally broke through, I will be the first to say he owned Kevin Durant psychologically. He would take him in the post physically and beat him up and bully him. And then that all changed once, obviously, Kevin went to Golden State. And in back-to-back finals, Kevin was the finals MVP by taking over 2 game threes in the King's house.
So that's what it was. It was just Kevin Durant. So Steph Curry averaging 28, 9, and 8 had nothing to do with that. Klay Thompson chipping in with 22 had nothing to do with that. But that's okay. Back to the original premise. I love LeBron's selection. It seems to me he had an idea where he wanted to go first. He also had an idea where Kevin Durant was going to go with his 2nd and 4th pick. So that gave LeBron an opportunity to get what he did. The only surprise that I am is that he was able to get Luka and Steph. I know what he thinks of Luka. Skip, you remember he said he wanted to start a shoe company under the umbrella of Nike, and he wanted Luka to be the face of it. Nike was not as keen as he was to that idea. So I know what he thinks of Luka. To get Steph and to be able to play with Steph, I think, all things being equal, Skip, Magic got an opportunity to play with Michael in the Olympics. And a lot of times, Skip, guys like Karl Malone and David Robinson, they got an opportunity to play with the Larry Bird that they would have never played with because of the Olympics. Well, Steph didn't play with LeBron in the Olympics, if I'm not mistaken. And so this was his opportunity, and LeBron's probably not going to play in the 2021 Olympics in Tokyo. So this was his opportunity to play with another historically great, transcendent player, and says, you know what? I did team with Steph 1 year in an All-Star game, and we beat the brakes off KD's team.
Well, I would like to, in conclusion, congratulate Kevin Durant for out-GMing LeBron James.
Well, who you got in the game? Who you picking? Are you picking KD's team?
Is he going to come back and play? Have a miraculous recovery?
Don't worry about that. Hold on. Time out. No. Who you got? Because here's the thing, Skip. You say Michael Jordan is a terrible GM because he played. Michael Jordan ain't playing, so Kevin Durant ain't playing. You like the team that he picked.
I do.
Put some dew on it.
Put some dew on it. I think I'm up 15 cases in 2021.
No,
so
you are.
I'll put one case on it. Yeah, I'll take the hopeless underdog. Two. 1 case. I got it.
No. No, Skip, either you gonna be up 10 cases, or I'm gonna pull close. I'm gonna be down 6 cases. So I need 2 cases. You up 8? I need 2 cases.
How am I up 8? I won 10 on Tom Brady,
8.
and then I won 5 on LeBron.
Now you won 5.
Okay, we got time. We can settle this.
Okay.
Just so you do know, Skip, LeBron is 3-0 as a captain. So, you
Wow.
know, he's got a
3-0
right now.
No mercy.
Hey, Undisputed listeners, I wanted to tell you about our brand new Fox Sports app and website, foxsports.com. Reimagined for the modern sports fan. Go ahead, download the new app right now. You don't even have to pause this episode. Every day on the new app and website, you'll see the top stories in sports, plus a rich world of written content, videos, social media, and analytics to give you a 360-degree view of the most important stories of the day. Streaming live TV has never been so easy or elegant. Every Fox Sports game, including all pregame and postgame shows, are just one click away. For the extra invested fan, we also go deep with real-time wagering lines, trending prop bets, win probability, and key player projections. Download the new Fox Sports app or visit www.foxsports.com.
Hey, Undisputed listeners, it's Charlotte Wilder here to tell you about my new podcast with Mark Titus called the People Sports Podcast. It comes out every Thursday, and Mark and I take one of the big stories of the week, and then we go off on tangents you never saw coming. This might mean that we start talking about the Dodgers winning the World Series and end up wondering if Knicks fans deserve happiness. Or begin with LeBron's greatness and end up drafting our ultimate beer league softball team made up of old athletes. Whatever it is, the only rule of the show is that it has to be fun and funny, because these days we can all use as many laughs as we can get. So check it out wherever you get your podcasts and come down weird sports rabbit holes with us. We can't wait to have you.
Ben Roethlisberger will be coming back next season for the Steelers, and at a much cheaper price. Big Ben is restructuring his deal, according to reports, that will reduce his pay by $5 million in the final year of the deal. Overall, the restructuring is expected to free up over $15 million this season for Pittsburgh. So, Shannon, is this a good move or a bad move to bring Big Ben back at this point?
Skill. Here's the thing. My grandpa used to say, boy, give me your options and I tell you your choices. Okay, what's the options? Haskins, Mason Rudolph. Well, your choice has been Roethlisberger. There you go. Give me your option. I'll tell you your choices. What choice did they have, Skip, given the options that they placed themselves in? The Steelers have not done a great job preparing for the future at that position. And you would think, having had to go through what they went through with Terry Bradshaw when he retired, if I'm not mistaken, Skip, in 1984, to all the way 2 decades later getting Ben in the first round in 2004, you would have thought they would have done a better job of preparing for life after Ben Roethlisberger. Mm-hmm. But guess what? They have not. So now this is what faces them. Their options were either Dwayne Haskins or Mason Rudolph. So the only choice that they had was to bring Ben Roethlisberger back. Even at $5 million pay reduction, so he's supposed to make $19 million base, he makes $14 million now, Skip. That was the only choice that they had. Does it make him better? Now all of a sudden he comes back? Skip, what's the likelihood? A guy in year what would this be, year 18 for Ben? That his arm, after elbow surgery, after all the sacks, after all the hits, after the motorcycle injury robbed him of probably a year of his career. His arm's going to get stronger? He's going to push the ball down the field more now? Hell, I read a story where Ben barely practices during the week. I'm trying to figure out how the hell the starting quarterback really doesn't practice that much and have a rhythm with the receivers. No, it doesn't make them any better. Skip, they're not a very good team. The team is built. They can't run the football. So what are they going to do now all of a sudden? Are they going to trade for Derrick Henry? Are they going to trade for an elite running back? Are they going to draft Najee Harris? When they can run the football with more consistency and Ben is willing to attempt to push the ball down the field, wake me up. But in the meantime, I'm going to doze off and I'm going to sleep because I expect the Steelers to be exactly what they were last year.
Well, by the way, speaking of exactly what they were last year, you do remember that team got to 11-0, 11 wins and no losses. As you know, in this league, to get to 11-0 is not easy. Something has to be going right. And at the end of the year...
Here's the thing, though, Skip.
What's that?
They're going to lose Bud Dupree.
Maybe.
So, but we also, we saw, but Skip, what did we see? Even when they played your Cowboys and they won, I was telling you all year, Skip, I see major flaws in this team.
Okay.
They're not winning any playoff games.
All right.
They're too flawed.
But
so how do they correct those flaws?
Okay, they wound up third for the whole year in points allowed. Third, and Pro Football Focus ranked that defense second overall. That's pretty good. And
Okay.
I realized they crumbled down the stretch. They went 1-5. I realized they fell behind, 28-0 after a quarter of a playoff game at home against an arch rival in the Cleveland Browns, and it was 35-10 at half. I got that. I realized that Ben Roethlisberger wound up with Pouncey sitting on the bench crying at the end of the game, and it felt like the end of an era. I get all that. But I still believe in Ben Roethlisberger. I'm still a fan of his. I'm not a fan of the Steelers in any way, shape, or form, but you remember, I love Devin Bush, too. I loved him. I thought they stole him in the first round of that draft. And I assume he's going to come back full force. And if he does, there's a chance they'd keep Bud Dupree. I don't know. He's probably going to command too much money on the open market. He's obviously coming off an injury also. But I don't think the defense is going to be any worse. I mean, T.J. Watt's still there and Cam Hayward's still there, and I can go down the line. I think they're still going to be very good on defense.
And Joe Hayden?
I think he probably will be gone, be a cap casualty. But the point is...
Oh, you're talking Joe Hayden.
Joe Hayden, yeah. But, look, I'm pretty sure they're going to take Najee Harris in the first round because they better. And if they don't take Najee, they might talk themselves into Travis Etienne. But I love both those kids. But I'll give Najee a slight edge because he runs a little more physically, and he can really catch it and run with it.
Catch the ball a little better.
Hey.
Yes.
Najee, he made that Alabama attack go. And, again, they were about as loaded as any offense we've seen in the history of college football. But still.
Yeah.
What do we always say? What's the ultimate cliche? The running game is the quarterback's best friend. Well, I believe Ben's going to have a new best friend next year named Najee Harris. And if he does, you better look out because it's going to change the way they play offense. It's going to change. They'll tilt back to a balanced team. And if they can, listen, Ben Roethlisberger, I realize he's 39 years of age. And yet, he's been to 6 Pro Bowls, he's been to 3 Super Bowls, and he won 2 of them. And I get it. It looked like he couldn't throw it 5 yards last year, but he just knows how to play quarterback. He just knows how to stay upright in the pocket. I don't know how he does it. He's just a big, strong guy. And it's not weight room strong, and he takes a lot of hits he's not the biggest workout warrior in the offseason.
Weight room, he don't even work out.
Well, that's what I'm saying. But the point is, I believe he will be inspired by what he saw Brady do. And I believe he did at least glimpse his football mortality at the end of that Cleveland game. Like, is this the end for me? And I believe you'll see a much more recommitted Big Ben offseason going into regular season. I like their chances. I still think they're going to rival Baltimore for the best team in that division.
I'm scared. Hold on, time out. Now, all of a sudden, Brady's been playing at a level for 21 years. And let's just say for the sake of argument, we're going to just take last year not counting, but the previous 3-4 years. Ben wasn't inspired by that. What's Ben workout? You read the reports. Ben workout is yoga, going drinking beer, playing golf. So how does Tom Brady inspire that? When you know what Tom Brady does in the offseason. So Ben goes and does an hour yoga class, drinks beer, plays golf. How does that equate to playing football at an elite level? What have you seen from Ben? Like you tell me about Aaron Rodgers. He did win that Super Bowl, but that was a decade ago. Well, Ben Roethlisberger won his Super Bowl even longer than that. And somehow you believe after the injuries, after the elbow surgery, after what you saw last year, that all of a sudden he's going to come back and be reinvigorated? That he's going to be better than what he's been?
Well, what did we talk about yesterday? How many Pro Football Hall of Famers would give anything to be able to snap fingers and go back to where they were at the end of their career and keep it going the way Brady's kept it going to 43, 44, maybe 45? Well, just about all of them would, right?
Yes, but Skip, that's not what I'm arguing with you. I'm not arguing with that. What I'm debating with you is how good this Steelers team is going to be. I'm not saying that he should retire, but what are your expectations?
I give him a real shot to win the division, and I think Cleveland will get a little better. I think Baltimore is going to be really good. I liked them a lot last year, so it'll be a three-team race. But I'm not counting Pittsburgh out of winning this division, not with Ben Roethlisberger back at quarterback. And I do believe he will be scared straight. I believe he saw it like the end flash before his eyes. And I don't think it's ever flashed before. I don't think he's ever had any pressure on him. And he felt real heat on him for the first time that he just might lose his job. And he took a huge cut in salary. I mean, $14 million still, it's good money by most people's standards in the pro football, but not by quarterback standards. He's only making $14 million. I think that'll humble him and refocus him.
No, Cam Newton took a huge pay cut, going from $21 million down to $1 million.
Yep.
Cam Newton took a pay cut. But let me ask you this, Skip. Ben Roethlisberger has never been held accountable for his play on the field. Ben Roethlisberger has been reckless with the football.
He has.
And he's never been held accountable. And somehow now you believe in year 18 he's going to be held accountable?
No,
Remember, they got rid of everybody else. Go ahead.
Doesn't he know that this is it? Like, all of a sudden, this could be one and done, one more and done. And doesn't he know he's playing for his future now? And I think he doesn't want to quit yet. And I think you're going to see a much better Ben next year than you saw last year. And yet, last year they got to 11-0. Ain't easy.
Skip, here's the thing. If you don't save up for a car, if you haven't been saving, if you haven't put anything aside, how the hell do you just go get a new car? You just ride that car until the wheels fall off. Well, it's getting, the check engine light is on. As a matter of fact, it's not on, it's flashing. But the Steelers have not prepared. They haven't saved anything for a new quarterback. They haven't developed a new quarterback. So what options do you have but to drive this car until it breaks down side the freeway with the interstate with your butt in it? That's the only options they have. They're over the cap to begin with. They haven't developed a young quarterback. So what other choices do they have but to bring Big Ben back? And the Steelers are not measured by division, Skip. They're one of the few teams that have 6 titles. They have 6. The Patriots have 6. The Cowboys have 5. They don't get measured by division titles. As Mike Tomlin always says, the standard is the standard. The standard for Pittsburgh is championships, not division titles. We'll leave that to the Cowboys. Okay. The Cowboys hang banners for winning NFC East titles.
Okay. So you're telling me that Ben Roethlisberger is still the quarterback of the Steelers by default because they have no other choice?
Yes.
So you're saying...
Skip, you heard what... Skip.
Go ahead.
You heard what the general manager said. Did that sound like a ringing endorsement? Did that sound like, oh, man, boy, we anxious to get Big Ben back? We'll see. Skip, let me tell you what. If somebody asks Ernestine, well, how you and Skip getting along? Well, we'll see. Wow, Ernestine, what are you talking about? We gonna see. Well, that's what Kevin Colbert said. You heard him. And you and I talked about it the next day. That wasn't a ringing endorsement.
Okay, he was negotiating. He needed to renegotiate a deal so they'd have a little bit of cap space so they could even think about keeping Bud Dupree. And he won.
Skip.
He got him.
Skip. They had Ben where they wanted. They were never going to Ben. That cap number 41 million was never going to happen. Everybody knew that. Ben play didn't warrant that. Had he done with Tom Brady, they would have had no problem. As a matter of fact, if they'd played like Tom Brady down the stretch and won the Super Bowl, hell, they would have extended him. Like they're talking about extending Tom.
Yeah.
My thing is, Skip,
okay,
I just don't see Ben getting better. That arm getting stronger.
Okay, good.
In year 18.
I got it. I hear you. So let's set the over-under for next year's Steelers at 8-8. Are you going under 8-8?
I give you 9-7.
You say they will be 9-7.
Yeah.
Well, that's not terrible. You act like they're just dead in the water.
Hold on. You just said they went 11-5. They won their first 11 games last year.
Yeah.
I'm saying they won't win this many games. I'm saying they're going to be 2 games less than what they won last year.
All right,
So why wouldn't it be equal to good or not better?
Okay, I will take 10 wins for 2 cases right now.
Bet. Got it.
Got it? Thank you.
10 wins, 2 cases.
Love Diet Mountain Dew.
Hold on, Skip, Baylor. Skip. And moving forward, I want 2 cases. I want 2 liters. I don't want them little 16-ounce bottles. I want 2 liters. I want 2 cases of 2 liters.
What do you mean you want?
Why?
You owe me 15 cases now, and over the years, you've owed me like 100 cases, and I've never got one of them.
I feel like
I gave you 72 bottles one year.
You want? Oh, yeah.
I gave you 72 bottles one year.
Yeah,
remember
but
that.
Fox funded that.
It's time to, you got to.
It was a negotiation between Fox and I.
Okay.
Very interesting. I always think of Skip saying he's going to swim in his pool of Mountain Dew.
I love my
Shannon,
pool.
you're helping him supply that right now. All right, we're 45 minutes into the show. We already got 4 cases on the line here. But let's talk about a different quarterback. Tensions remain pretty tight between Russell Wilson and the Seahawks. While Russ has said he wants to stay in Seattle, his agent made it clear the quarterback would accept a trade to Chicago, Las Vegas, Dallas, or New Orleans. The latest report is the Seahawks are not shopping their franchise quarterback around, but they are answering any calls from other teams about him. Shannon, are you surprised they're taking calls for Russ at this point?
No. Skip, he's made it clear that he's not happy with a lot of things that's going on in Seattle. Seattle seems to be like, okay, it is what it is, bro. Skip, I tell the story. When Oprah bought the home that she lives in Montecito, it wasn't for sale. She knocked on the door and told the people she wanted to buy the house. And when she gave them the check, they left everything in the house and booked it. So then Seattle is saying, we're not trying to trade Russ, but if you make us an offer we can't refuse, you can have it. So that's what they're saying. Come to us with something. Now, I believe they're at bare minimum, Skip, it's a Matthew Stafford deal where you're talking about 2 first-rounders. And you might, given the success, no quarterback has won as many, Russ has won 90-plus games in 9 years, 10 years. So nobody's won as many games as he has his first year. But, Skip, for the right price, you could have Russell Wilson is what Seattle's telling. What I gather from that is that Seattle is saying, we don't want to trade Russ, but if you make us an offer we can't refuse, you could have Russ. And I believe somebody's going to come in and offer 2 first-rounders, maybe 2 first, a 2, and a 3. And Russell will be playing elsewhere. That's what that tells me, because the mere fact that they're taking calls. Skip. If something is not available, why the hell are you taking calls? You could have easily said, Russell Wilson is not available. Goodbye. But that's not what they're doing.
Okay, so you just said that you have concluded that Russell Wilson will play elsewhere next football season.
If they make, I'm not Skip. Now you're not going to get him for a first rounder, but if you make them an offer they can't refuse. If somebody says, okay, Seattle, we got 2 ones. We got because remember, Skip, they gave up this year's number 1 and next year's number 1 for the Jamal Adams trade.
Yeah.
So if I can replenish something that I have given that replenish my coffers, why wouldn't I do that knowing that the guy's unhappy? Skip, if he's unhappy this year, what makes me so sure he's going to be happy next year if he's unhappy right now? So what can I do? It seems to me Pete, he doesn't like the control that Pete has. He doesn't like that it's the nepotism that's in the organization with Pete hiring his sons, and they carry having conversation and having input, but he has none. So Pete said, I'd just rather cut my losses now. Give me 3 number 1s and you could have Russell Wilson. I'll make it easy. Give me 3 number 1s and you could have Russ.
Okay, so is your gut feeling he will be gone sooner than later?
My gut feeling, yes, Skip. I'm gonna go 65% that Russ plays elsewhere next year.
Okay. I am willing right here, right now, to bet you 2 more cases of Diet Mountain Dew that Russell Wilson will be a Seahawk on opening day this coming football season. Want to take that?
Man, look here. What's up with all this Dew you try to get up out of me, man? You know what's... Okay, fine. I give you 2 cases.
Okay, done. Shannon Sharp, To me, this is a childish power struggle that's playing out right before your very eyes. I don't think there's any way they're going to trade Russ because, A, he's just too good, and B, it would cost them $39 million in dead cap money if they trade him now. They could split it up a little bit. It'd still be $39 million if they wait until after June 1st. But I don't see either way. I just think this is a public power struggle, a PR battle, a game of chicken between a quarterback who got his feathers ruffled a little bit because he didn't have as much input as he wanted, and then an organization that said, how dare you, and you and your agent, to put out a list of teams that you would sign off on a trade to, including the Dallas Cowboys and, the rest of them. Now it's a lot of talk about the Chicago Bears.
Yeah, that's what you hoping anyway.
Well, I told you, if they would do it for just 1-1 and take Dak and we could trade problems right now, yeah, I'd take Russell Wilson, because I'm going to remind you, going back to just last August, heading into last football season, do you remember the annual players voting on the NFL.com top 100 players? It's voted on by the players on players. And remember, Russell was like 1A. He was almost number one to Lamar Jackson at the top of the list. And I remember they had Jerry Rice talking about, hey, to me, it's Russell Wilson, as he's the best quarterback in pro football. Well, I don't think that dramatically changed. Russell, the last, maybe 10 or 12 games last year, he started to struggle. They started to struggle. He ended up being the most sacked quarterback in pro football, and that was in large part his fault because he hung on to the ball too long trying to throw home runs. And yet he started to turn the ball over at a high rate. And then in that playoff game against the Rams at home, he had a QBR of 17 on a scale 0 to 100. That's horrible. But remember, they did win the division last year, and we all thought it was going to be a tough division. Obviously, the 49ers fell apart, but they won it. And because they won the division, I don't think they're doing anything but bluffing each other, kind of trying to put each other back in their place. And yet, in the end, there's no way Russell Wilson's going anywhere but Seattle.
Skip, I disagree with you. I don't believe Russell Wilson is bluffing. I believe Russell Wilson would really I believe it would enhance not only his wife's career, who he loves very much, and she's an entertainer, and he wants to be close, and he wants to be somewhere. Vegas would be ideal because she could get a residency in one of these hotels.
I agree.
Perform 5 days a week. All right. And that would be great. His brand, Dallas would be best for his brand.
It would be.
You talk about Chicago. Markets, Russell Wilson wants to be a brand. You talk about guys wanting to copy what Tom Brady's doing. Well, TB12 is a brand. That's what they also want to. Yeah, they want to win Super Bowl, Skip. Don't get me wrong. I don't want anybody to think that all they care about is brand. Russell Wilson has won, came very close to winning again, but he also wants to monetize, let Russ cook the brand, and so he can have something after football. That's what these guys are doing now, Skip. When we play, Skip, look, you either went into broadcasting and that was it. Yeah. But guys have found other ways to monetize after football. And Russ is one of those guys that's looking beyond his playing career. And it would be better served if he was in Dallas, if he was in Vegas, if he was in Chicago. That's what I believe. And so I do not believe Russell Wilson is bluffing. Seattle might be trying to bluff.
Maybe.
They say, okay, Russ, we'll trade you. If you don't tamper this down, we'll trade you. Yep. Russ says, I got a no trade. You can't trade me anywhere I don't want to go. Yep. But just to see, I'm going to give you 4 teams that I want to. Why don't you call them and see what they'd be willing to give you for me?
So what you're telling me is that right now, instead of letting Russ cook, they're letting Russ simmer, right? On the back burner, like, hey, we're taking calls.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes. And the mere fact, Skip, that they let that out publicly. Skip, when was the last time you heard teams say, oh, yeah, we're fielding calls?
No.
Skip, they do that to Sam Darnold.
They do.
You don't do that to Russell Wilson, the guy that's won a Super Bowl, that's been a great player in this league for a long time. You don't do that to him. You do that to Sam Darnold. You do that to some guys like, oh, yeah, we try to get up off you. You don't do that to Russ.
No, I got it. But Shannon, they're just trying to send him a very public message of we're still in charge here, right?
Right. Yeah. And he read that message and said, I got one for y'all. You're not in charge.
Okay. Well, and we'll.
But I'm gonna get my two.
You're gonna get it?
Hold on. When does free agency start, Skip? The 27th? No, that's the trade deadline in March. I'm trying to think, when is NFL free agency? It's soon.
All I care about right now is next Tuesday at 4 o'clock Eastern, because that is the deadline for putting franchise tags on people such as Dak Prescott in Dallas, Texas.
Skip, why you waiting on that? You already know what's going to happen. You know he getting the tag.
Well, I'm thinking, is there a long shot? Like, I would happily lose 2 cases to you if you told me that Jerry Jones had pulled off a trade for Russell Wilson so that we had a happy camper and Seattle could have a happy camper.
Yeah, it would take Dak and 2 first-rounders. I tell you what, Skip, give us Dak. Seattle's going to say, we want Dak, 2 first-rounders, and D-Law.
I'd think about that. I would, because I don't think Dak's ever going to be happy in Dallas. And if you're right about they're just going to tag him just before the deadline next Tuesday, then I think we all agree that means it'll be 1 more year in Dallas and done, because they're not going to tag him. What's the third tag goes to, like $53 million or whatever?
51 million.
51 million.
Yeah,
they're not going to do that, obviously. So that would be the beginning of the end of Dak in Dallas. Okay.
Yep. You put the tag on him, Skip, he's going to be like a Kentucky or Duke freshman, one and done. He's out of there.
Okay. Last quick point about, you talked about Russ's wife, and she is very talented, obviously, and has her own career.
Yes.
There's been so much speculation about Russell to Chicago. Well, I lived in Chicago for 4 years, and I do not believe his wife would love living in Chicago, because it gets too humid for 3 summer months, and it gets way too cold for 9 winter months. That's what happens.
It does. My mom lived in Chicago since 1960. Yeah. So I know what cold is. I don't think she would, Skip. But I think but look, I think the 2 ideal places for Russ would be, you don't like him with the Raiders because you say John Gruden is really tough on his quarterback. But I think the Vegas situation, and obviously for a brand, there's nothing bigger than Dallas.
Nope. America's team. Here he comes.
I don't know. So March 17th, NFL free agency. So we got a couple, about a week and a half before we start to see a lot of movement we're expecting here, guys. And I'm really interested how this one plays out.
No mercy.
NBA.com released their Defensive Player of the Year power rankings earlier this week, with Ben Simmons grabbing the top spot. The top 5, which includes Rudy Gobert, Miles Turner, LeBron, and Jamal Murray, was tweeted out, and Patrick Beverley replied with nothing but a laughing, crying emoji. What is he trying to say? Shannon, what do you make of his emoji reaction here?
Pat Bev still views himself as a top-notch defender. The problem is he's not, Skip. Pat Bev is, for my viewers out there, they'll know what I'm talking about. There was a movie called The 5 Heartbeats. And Eddie King, he gave himself what songs called Eddie King. He had lost it, Skip. He had been drinking, he was on drugs, and he kept coming back, and he thought he still had it. And he's singing for him, but he doesn't have it anymore. Everybody sees that he doesn't have it. Only he can't see that he doesn't have it. Pat Bev, Skip, is reputation now. Now, this is what Zach LaVine hit him for 45 in January. Steph went for 38 in January. Harden went for 37 2 weeks ago. Bradley Beal and Russ took turns last night. Skip, he's not the same guy. And just for this, he's on pace for the most fouls per 36 minutes by a guard since 2003. So as Russ said a couple of years ago, Pat Bev got y'all fooled. He out there running around doing nothing. Pat Bev got to understand he's not the same guy. He spent most of the time injured. He spends a lot of his time, Skip, on the bench because he's injured. Patrick Beverley was once an outstanding defensive player. I won't take that away from him, but he's high. If he thinks he's that same defender today as he was 4 or 5 years ago, and it's not even close. So I don't know what the laughing emoji, maybe he's like the names that are on the list is laughing, or maybe he's laughing that he's not on the list. Whatever the case may be, nobody in the NBA thinks Patrick Beverley is that elite guard defender, the on-ball defender that he once was. Skip, he was always a high foul guy. Look at, all you got to do is just check the fouls against him. But Skip, it's not even close. You look at the Clippers defensively, Skip, they're 15th in the defensive rating. They're 47th. He's 47th in defensive win shares. I don't get where he thinks that those numbers, considering when you got Paul George, you got Kawhi, you got Serge Ibaka and Pat Bev, and you still a middle of the pack defensive team. What's going on? I don't know what Pat Bev is. Maybe he hit the wrong button. Maybe he was trying to hit that sad button. Because, Skip, you know that Republican congressman, he voted against the bill, but he pressed the wrong button, and it's like he supported it. But, Pat, I don't know what you're thinking, bro. You're not that dog anymore. You're not that guy anymore.
Okay. My first issue with this topic is I don't love emojis because if you just put one up there, if you just post one emoji, it's so non-specific that you're not spelling out exactly what you mean. So, again...
left for interpretation.
Right. You just leave it open. It's hazy. It's murky. It's like, well, is he talking about himself, or is he talking about Ben Simmons, or is he talking about LeBron? I don't know, because you're sort of hiding behind the emoji. But I also think that emoji getting that kind of reaction is vintage Patrick Beverley. And I am still very, very happy he is a Los Angeles Clipper, and he is still the heartbeat of this team because he's an irritant. And this is classic irritation because it makes everybody throw up their hands and say, what's he doing now? Who's he aiming this emoji at? Who is it? Is it Ben Simmons? Is he saying Ben's overrated? Or to your point, is he saying Patrick belongs on this list? Well, all I know is Patrick Beverley is 32 years of age, which is not too old to be a high-level defender, because what did we see LeBron this year at age 36? He snapped back out of it, and he went from a horrible defender 2 years ago in his first year in L.A. to he's been ranked number one here recently in defensive win shares. Well, you don't think Patrick Beverley is capable of being a top 5 defender if he locks back down and locks in and gets healthier? When it's time to defend, Patrick Beverley can defend at a high level.
Well, it seems to me that you're the only one that's happy that he's still in the Clippers, because everything that I read is that the Clippers have been trying to get off him and Lou Will for the better part of 3 weeks. So it seems to be that you're happy, but I'm not so sure the Clippers feel that same way.
Well, all I know is he's not a point guard, and I told you Rondo would have been, and now Rondo's been hurt, so everybody stays. Guys with injury histories stay hurt, right? But
exactly.
Okay, so I don't think Patrick Beverley is the guy who can get you in order as a point guard. He can't facilitate the offense, get it, set it up where it should be like Chris Paul can. Chris Paul can just bring order to the flow of an offense because he is so gifted mentally. He can see it, set it up, and command it. And Patrick Beverley does not have that ability. But Patrick Beverley can get up in you, and I'll never forget going back, to early last year. It was the Christmas Day game. Remember, Patrick Beverley was on LeBron at the end of the game and managed to block his shot, a 3 to tie at the end of the game on the way up. Knocked it out of LeBron's hands and off the top of his head. Here it is right now. And out of bounds. Knocked it out of bounds. That's Patrick Beverley. And that's just sheer savvy and will and guts and irritation. And I'm sure it drove LeBron mad. And I think he lost sleep after this game because Patrick Beverley, who's 6'1", did that to 6'9" LeBron James. Well, that's what he's capable of in the biggest moments. So, yes, I'm glad he is occasionally on the court for the Clippers.
Skip, we got to stop thinking that because a guy makes a play here or there, he's a tremendous defender. That was a heck of a play. But you and I both know he cannot guard LeBron. They bring help. They double and get the ball out of LeBron's hand. Because if Patrick Beverley tried to guard LeBron for the entirety of the ball game, you know what would happen. They thought he could guard Kevin Durant, and Kevin Durant dropped 50 on him. Zach LaVine dropped 45. James Harden just dropped 37 a couple of weeks ago. Steph Curry cooked him for 38. Skip, he's not that anymore, and that's okay. I'm not saying he's not a good player, but for him to think that he's an elite defender, Skip, even Paul George is not the defender that he once was. Kawhi is the defender that they once were. Because if you were, there's no way you would be 15th with Serge Ibaka, who was on the all-defensive team. Paul George has been all-defensive team. Kawhi has been that. Pat Bev, you got 4 guys that at one point in time in their careers were on the all-defensive team. Kawhi has been a 2-time defensive player of the year. In your middle of the pack, you're an average defensive team. But look at their offensive rating. What are they, 2 or 3? So it shows where their focus is at. Their focus is not on the defensive end, Skip. And that notion that, they can just lock in when the rubber needs to reach the road, Skip. Why do they keep blowing these leads? If they have 15, 19, 17-point leads and blow them year after year, it was Doc. Remember now, they had a 3-1 lead and had leads in every game, 5, 6, 7. And it was Doc's fault. Paul George threw him under the bus. Kawhi Leonard threw Doc up under the bus. The same exact thing is happening this year. Why? Because the one thing you changed coaches, you didn't change the players. And the same thing is happening this year that happened last year. You can't, but Skip told me, everybody was telling me, this is a really tough team. They got dogs. Wah, 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 wah. So maybe them dogs, maybe they hungry, they just not eating. Is that what it is, Skip Bayless? Talk to me now.
To quote the great William Shakespeare, methinks she doth protest too much. And in this case, he doth protest too much because I think you're scared of the Clippers because all you want to do is talk about the Clippers because you know they're coming up from the basement for your Lakers. And you know and I know if they can get and stay healthy, and they're not right now because Paul George is out again, but if you get Kawhi and Paul George healthy with Pat Beverley and the new pieces of the team, Ibaka and Nicholas Batum, who has helped settle down the offense, and all of a sudden, Lou Will, I don't know if you've been watching over the last 10 games, he's turning back into Lou Williams, Sweet Lou, not Lemon Pepper Lou.
Hold on, Skip. Skip, hold on, time out. I know they just didn't lose to the Wizards last night. You told me the Wizards were the pathetic team.
Okay, they didn't have Paul George.
You talking about how bad LeBron... Well, we lost to it. We didn't have AD. You ain't say a word.
Well, you have the quote-unquote best player on the planet, the quote-unquote GOAT.
Now, whoa, what about Kawhi? What about that Terminator? Hold on, Skip. Hold on. Y'all was talking about Kawhi was better. You heard all the people that saying Kawhi was better than LeBron? Yeah. He won Finals MVP. He was the toast of the town. Everybody won. He's better than LeBron. He can do this better than LeBron. He got a mid-range game. He shoot the 3. He shoot free throws. How the hell you let that happen? You lost to the Wizards? Well, that's what you just told me the other day. LeBron can't lose to the Wizards. Okay. And guess what happened, Skip?
You lost at home to the Wizards. At home. Seriously?
Let me ask you a question.
By the way, that was the game. That was the game that you lost 5 cases of Diet Mountain Dew to me because they lost that home game. Way to go, LeBron.
Let me ask you a question. So are the rims different at home as opposed to on the road? So what was the difference? There's no difference. Your team lost, Skip. You need to accept that fact. Kawhi Leonard lost. Patrick,
what's the biggest cliche of an NBA season? You better beware of that last game before the break because your players are not going to be into it.
You know what, Skip Bayless? I know you do a lot of that. You do a lot of that excuses when your team that you like, they lose. It's the dog. Who cares about a game on a Monday or Tuesday? Who cares about a game in January? Now it's all of a sudden that last game before the All-Star break. Let that happen to LeBron James. That's not what you say when LeBron, Pat Bev did that play on Christmas, right? And you still showing it 2 years later. So if it was, hold on, you got to be careful a game on Christmas. Guys are not playing with their family. They want to see their kids open presents. You got to be careful of games like that. You didn't say that. You talked about how Pat Bev 6'1" knocked the ball off LeBron's head.
He did. And would you like me to show the blooper reel from going back 2 years ago? LeBron playing no defense where Kuzma had to shove him out? Had to shove him out to guard the three-point line. And we went from that moment to LeBron ranked number 1 in the NBA in defensive win shares. So who's to say Pat Bev can't flip that switch again at age 32? What's LeBron now, 42? I lose track.
Skip, first of all, let me tell you why he can't flip that switch. Because he's not that great of a player to have a switch to flip. All he can do is just cut the lights on. He don't have one of those sensors like, Skip, some people have the lights that when you walk in the room, they automatically come on. And as you walk further, they dim or they lighten accordingly. That's what LeBron James have. That's what the great players have. Patrick Beverley just have a switch. You walk in the room, you hit the wall, and the lights come on. He don't have all that heat power. No, he don't have that. That thermal imagery, that when you walk into the room, the lights start to light up.
Yeah, I got it.
And then as you walk out the room, they start to dim. He got that.
So you referred to the classic Russell Westbrook quote from 2019, ripping Patrick Beverley, and he said, Pat Bev trick y'all, man, like he actually playing defense. He don't guard nobody, man. Okay, I got it, but whose skin does Patrick Beverley get under better than Russell Westbrook's? Because obviously he knocked him out of the playoffs back in the day. You remember that when Russell was trying to call timeout and he hit his knee, and that was the end of Russell. So
Russ knee hadn't been the same since.
There you go. That is Patrick Beverley. That's why I love him being a Los Angeles Clipper, and they will need him down the stretch, and you will despise him down the stretch.
No mercy.
While picking the reserves for the All-Star game, LeBron couldn't help but have a little fun when it came to selecting a crosstown rival. Check out exactly what he said on this pick.
This is the only time I'll root for this guy or this team because we are enemies. Nah, just making fun of it. But I'm going with Paul George, PG-13, from the Los Angeles Clippers.
We are enemies, but he said it with a smile. I like that. Fox Sports NBA analyst Chris Broussard joining us this morning. So, Chris, are you surprised LeBron picked Paul George here?
I'm not surprised, and I thought LeBron was totally joking around. He had a great night. He was joking all the time. And if he had said that a year ago, I might have thought there was some seriousness to it and some truth underneath it. Because let's face it, last year, there was more of an aura about the Clippers. You know, there was this veil of intrigue about them, and they had people all throughout the league, including myself, thinking that they were the best team in basketball. You know, Kawhi Leonard was coming from Toronto off the championship. Paul George had just gotten to L.A. He hadn't had last year's playoff struggles, so we didn't know about that. They had Montrezl Harrell and Pat Beverley. They were supposed to have these dogs. They had a championship coach. I mean, the Clippers were the team. Very rarely do we see a team that's the team to beat without having won a championship, and they were that last year. But all of that was blown up in the bubble. And now I think to LeBron and the Lakers, they're just another team. Yeah, they're in L.A., okay, we know they're coming after us, but I think they're pretty much just another team that we have to beat and that the Lakers feel very confident that they'll beat. So I think LeBron was joking totally about the enemies comment. No worries, no fears about Paul George. Look, they know they're good, and they have to be taken seriously, but it is not like last year. And furthermore, let's face it, guys, at that point, who else was there to pick? Rudy Gobert, he isn't going to shine in an all-star game. I get him going last.
Exactly.
Domantas Sabonis, Nick Vucevic. I mean, only one left was Donovan Mitchell. And so I'm not surprised at all. I think LeBron was probably surprised PG-13 was still there. So
I agree with Chris. That's great value. I mean, LeBron gets a pick. And normally big guys don't shine in an all-star game. You got to go way back to Shaq. When we talk about Skip, you talk about big guys that have won the All-Star Game MVP, because you were talking about it yesterday, Skip, all the Anthony Davis won in his hometown of New Orleans when he played with the Pelicans. I mean, we don't look at AD as a true big. We look at him as a forward. We only count true centers. So Embiid, Gobert, Vucevic, Nikola Jokic, obviously Embiid and Jokic had already gone. So I thought LeBron got great value for PG. And here's the ironic thing about this. Guess what? PG go get 3 quarters. We not going to let him in the 4th quarter, so he can't monk it up. So long as you keep him out of the 4th quarter, Chris, you going to be good. We already got this thing in the work. PG, you going to get your minutes in the first 3 quarters, and then we going to shut this thing down for you, bro. So, I look, the Clippers have always wanted a rivalry. You know how sometimes it is, Chris, you always try to pick on somebody. You always try to, because, you know, if I mention his name, that way my name get talked about because I mentioned his name. Because sometimes the only time somebody can mention you is if they say something bad about somebody else. And that seems to be what the Clippers like to do. But anyway, we picked him, Skip. That just goes to show you we're not afraid of you. We just not gonna let you play in the 4th quarter and muck up our chances of winning, and we're gonna be good. But for the 9th pick, I agree, Chris. That was great value. Skip make it seem like he picked the guy with the 4th pick in the draft, or he's a starter. No, we got him way on down the line. We had an opportunity to get him before we took Dame. He didn't do that. He took 3 other guys before he took Paul George. Say, you know what? I'll throw him a bone. That should let him know what people. KD didn't take him. KD could have took him early too. KD didn't take it. Why didn't he take it? But we threw him a little bone so we didn't feel bad. You know, hey, you all-star, bro. Come on over here with Team LeBron and win this thing. But you won't be playing in the 4th quarter.
So you continue to say we took him or we didn't take him. Did you confer with LeBron before he made these picks? I don't know. Did you advise him?
All that.
Yeah? Okay.
Team LeBron, coached by Team Shannon, go win on Sunday.
Okay. I got 2 cases on the underdog KD's team with no KD. Now, back to the question at hand.
We already bet.
Yeah, I got it. I just wanted to solidify that pick, validate it. The point is, in the same circumstance, Michael Jordan would have never taken Paul George because Michael would have such disdain for Paul George. He would look down on Paul George, who has become the biggest object of ridicule in the entire NBA this year, that there's no way he would have taken Pandemic P over Donovan Mitchell at that point. And I still say there's some fear in LeBron's heart of the Clippers because in stretches this year, despite everything that my friend Chris Broussard just said, they have had long stretches where they have looked like the best team in basketball this year. And I'm going to remind you, I know it seems like forever ago, but on opening night, PG-13 hung 33 on LeBron and company, and he made 5 of 8 threes and just went crazy in the 3rd quarter and basically blew the Lakers off their floor in the 3rd quarter of that game, and the Clippers won handily. So don't tell me that LeBron doesn't have some fear of the enemy still living down in the basement, now back in the shadows. And I still believe in the old slogan that I believe LeBron lives by, keep your friends close and your enemies closer. And LeBron knows full well that if he picks Paul, that Paul will think, gee, LeBron chose me. LeBron's such a great guy, and it might take a little edge off Paul's game when they meet again in regular season, or let's hope so in the postseason if the Clippers can get to the Lakers this time. So I think there was method to the madness. I was shocked that he didn't go ahead and take Donovan Mitchell because I think a lot of people think Donovan Mitchell's just better than Paul George because Paul George has proven to be not as mentally strong as a lot of people thought he should be.
Yeah, but you see what PG did in the regular season.
Playing some mind games. But I think I'll get to those a little later. I think he was playing mind games with somebody else. I don't think he's worried at all about playoff P. At all. I mean, if there's one guy with the Clippers that would be of concern, it would be Kawhi Leonard. But Kawhi has struggled mightily in the clutch now. He's shooting 28% in clutch time. They've been outscored by 19 points in Kawhi's clutch minutes. So I don't think LeBron's concerned at all about the Clippers. And the disrespect, guys, you mentioned it, Skip, about the disrespect for Paul George. I mean, I think LeBron took him out of his misery. I think LeBron felt bad for him. He remembers Paul George from Indiana that used to give the Miami Heat Big Three some problems. And he's like, my goodness, how the mighty have fallen. I mean, you had Ben Simmons, Zach LaVine, Julius Randle all going before Paul George. Is Zion Williamson going before Paul George? I think LeBron felt bad for my man and said, let me get playoff P out of his misery. My goodness.
So you're saying, Chris, he took pity. Is that right? He took pity on Paul George. Yeah.
That's what we saying.
Playoff P was that low.
I could, and I will. Skip, hold on. When have you seen Paul George do in the postseason what he did to opening night to the Lakers? And I keep telling you, I'm sleeping. I'm hibernating. I'm like one of them Alaskan grizzly bears. I'm hibernating. Wake me up when he does that in the fourth quarter in playoff games. Wake me up when he does that. And I want to say something last night. Chris, you remember last year, they scapegoated Doc Rivers. They lost 5, 6, and 7 because Kawhi said we need guys with better IQ. We need to be put in situations. And Paul George threw Doc under the bus. In the same situations that lost them the game in 5, 6, and 7, they've lost basically every game this year in which they've been in those situations. Have big leads. The team get close in the fourth quarter and bust their head. With Kawhi Leonard standing on the free throw line when Russ came in and got that rebound, all they had to do is get the rebound. They had 6 seconds on the clock. All Kawhi had to do is get the rebound. Now let LeBron James have done that, standing on the free throw line, and let a little 6-foot guard come in there and get the rebound, Chris. What would have been said this morning? But he ain't mentioned that. Skip Bayless pretended he didn't see Kawhi, and then Kawhi throw his hands up like, what happened? You didn't get the rebound. That's what happened.
Well, wait a second. LeBron didn't play in the last game before the All-Star break at Sacramento when his team lost without him, right? So can't defend LeBron.
Your team lost to the Wizards with Kawhi.
What, 7 games, 8 games? Kawhi's missed like
he want to talk about LeBron missing 1 game.
Okay. Just wait until the Clippers get healthy because they do have a coach named Ty Lue. I think that's his name. Is it Ty Lue? Once upon a time, I think he helped LeBron win a championship, right? So I think he's pretty great at what he does.
Let me ask you a question, Skip Bayless. If Ty Lue hadn't coached LeBron in Cleveland, do you believe Ty Lue is the head coach of the Clippers? Stop playing, Skip. Don't do that.
Okay, but
LeBron James has done more for LeBron James has done more for coaches than the coaches have done for him. Look at Mike Brown. What Mike Brown doing now? How did he look when he didn't coach LeBron?
Okay, but Ty Lue looks pretty good to me, and I think he's standing on his own 2 feet just fine. And I think the Clippers are still a huge threat to the Lakers, and I think they're better than the Lakers, and I think they will beat the Lakers in the postseason if please help us get the Clippers to the Lakers.
No, please help.
Yeah.
I do think they're the second best team in the West, Skip.
I agree.
I do think that.
I mean, it's between the Lakers and the Clippers. That's it.
Their defense
we just got to get healthy.
Time play is bothering me. I don't know what's going on there. They should not be middle of the pack.
Chris, hold up, Jenny, before you go. Chris, tell me how a team with Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, Pat Bev, Serge Ibaka is struggling defensively. You got 4 guys that's been on the All-NBA first team. You got 1 guy that's won 2 Defensive Player of the Year. How the hell are they struggling defensively?
It makes you think that they are coasting, but again, they shouldn't be coasting. They don't have the right to coast. They haven't done anything together as a unit. So that's a bit bothersome.
So, Shannon, last quick question. Did you notice LeBron playing any defense 2 years ago in his first year in L.A.?
Oh, my goodness.
Kim, I don't do nothing about no, like you tell me, we talk about right now. What does 2 years ago have to do it right now?
Well,
lock him down. Clock.
Right now.
You remember what he did last year in the bubble to Kawhi? Right now.
This thing.
Number 1 in win shares defensive.
No mercy.
Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert were the last 2 players taken in last night's All-Star draft, which Charles Barkley called, quote, Utah Jazz slander. LeBron had a very unique theory as to why both Jazz players were last off the board. Take a listen.
I just want to say something because there's no slander. There's no slander to the Utah Jazz, but you guys got to understand. You guys got to understand, just like in video games growing up, we never played with Utah. Even as great as Karl Malone and John Stockton was, we would have never picked those guys in video games. Never.
Chris Broussard still with us. Chris, are you buying LeBron's explanation for why the two Utah Stars were the last two picked here?
I'm definitely buying it. Look, we know who LeBron's biggest idol was, who his inspiration was when he was coming up. It was Michael Jordan. So you know LeBron had no use for the Utah Jazz when he was coming up. So I definitely buy that. You can see KD bought it as well. But Skip, you mentioned LeBron earlier playing mind games. And this is where I think the mind games came in. He's hearing, like the rest of us, all about the Utah Jazz. Oh, they got the best record in the league. They're a contender. They move the ball so well. They make the extra pass. The analytics writers love them. They're an analytic guy's dream. He's hearing all of that. And I think he wanted to send them a message. Man, we don't believe in y'all. This is about basketball at the end of the day. This is about what you're going to do on the court. Mano a mano, you can take all that analytic stuff. We don't believe y'all got hoopers. And I think he's planting a seed for if they meet the Jazz in the playoffs, putting some doubt in their minds. You know, and Rudy Gobert, I think, can be made to doubt himself. All right, so I think that's what LeBron was doing, planting a seed in there. We know how much impact and influence LeBron has in the league. Guys look up to him. They listen to what he says. So I do think he was playing mind games with the Jazz, especially when he said, toward the end of the draft, he was like, you know what? I need some size. Yeah. I think everybody on the planet thought he was going to take Rudy Gobert at that point. And he goes, give me Domantas Sabonis, who was a late addition to the All-Star team. I mean, that just added insult to injury. So it was bad. So I think this is a mind game LeBron was playing. And I will say this, guys. I'm not surprised about Gobert. I mentioned earlier, he's not going to do anything in an up-and-down, three-point shooting all-star game. But Donovan Mitchell, that was some disrespect that I didn't see coming. And I'm shocked that he went so low. As I mentioned guys that went before PG-13, Zach LaVine before Donovan Mitchell. And I know Zach can play. And Julius Randle can play and all this stuff. But before Donovan Mitchell, who's leading his team to the best record in the league, major disrespect for the Utah Jazz. And I think LeBron was giving them a little something to think about when they meet in May or June.
Look, he's right. Nobody played with Utah growing up. It's like now. When they play these man games, Skip, who they playing with? They playing with Lamar Jackson. They grabbed Lamar Jackson. He might not be the best, but when the Michael Vick experience, everybody played with the Atlanta Falcons. The Atlanta Falcons were not winning Super Bowls, but they had the more electrifying players. Yep. Everybody has always looked at the Utah. Yes, they won, but they were very boring. They pick and roll you to death, kind of like what they do now. Now they kind of morphed into, Donovan Mitchell, Mike Conley driving, kicking to those three guys. But when I look at LeBron's roster, he already had Dame, he had Luka, he had Steph, he had CP3, he had Ben Simmons. Did he really need another guard? And then he had Jaylen Brown. So I'm trying to tell you, so over Steph, Dame, Luka, CP3, Ben Simmons, Donovan Mitchell's supposed to be in over who? Exactly. And Chris, you hit the nail on the head. Big guys, when all they do is dunk the ball or shoot threes, how does Rudy Gobert going to be by the time Rudy Gobert get the rebound and pass it, they're going to be done shot a three or somebody going to be on dunked it before he got to half court. So I get Donovan Mitchell maybe being upset, but what? Skip? I mean, LeBron, you look at LeBron's guard roster, it's like, who is he going to go in front of? Who you taking off? You're not taking him over Steph. You're not taking him over Dame. You're not taking him over Luka. You're not taking him over Ben Simmons or CP3. Maybe Jaylen Brown? Okay, you want to say he goes first Jaylen Brown. So instead of being second to the last, he'd have been third to last. Really?
That would have been better. I bet that would have made him feel better.
Allow me to say there have been many, many nights as I watch NBA games when I thought Donovan Mitchell was much better than a guy I've often referred to as George Paul as opposed to Paul George. Paul George has never been anything but a complimentary star. And Donovan, in flashes and bursts, looks like a superstar. But to both your points, when push came to shove last night, it was just reverberating disrespect to not only Donovan, but obviously Rudy Gobert. What is he, a two-time Defensive Player of the Year?
Two.
Yeah, because the problem with Donovan is, as much as I have loved him, as much as I loved him as a rookie, remember we went back and forth, Shannon, you and I, about Donovan Mitchell versus Ben Simmons for Rookie of the Year. And yet, every time I try to buy completely into Donovan, he throws a 5 of 22 at me, and he can be wildly erratic, wildly inconsistent with his superstar play. Obviously, he got on a roll against Jamal Murray, and those two kids just lit up the bubble night after night after night in that shootout of a series. But then there'll be other times when Donovan just disappears, and I don't get it. I don't think LeBron gets it. I don't think Kevin Durant gets it. And so they're both just shrugging at Donovan Mitchell, falling all the way to the bottom of this barrel. And I'm with both of you, and especially with Chris. I think the whole league is sitting back looking at Utah saying, hey, look, they've made the most threes so far in the first half of the season because they have taken the most threes. So they are living and dying by the three, and they've been hot for most of the whole first half. Even in the recent games they lost at New Orleans and Philly, they still shot the heck out of the three. But the defense has carried them. They've been ranked second overall to the Lakers in defensive efficiency, and yet nobody buys Gobert because we just saw back-to-back games in which both Zion and Joel Embiid basically just bullied him. That they just don't have great respect for him. They think they can terrorize a 7'2" guy who's not the physically strongest or mentally toughest guy out there. And to Chris's point, that they think he'll fold under fire, and sometimes he does. So nobody is afraid of the Utah Jazz, yet they end up the first half with, what are they, 27-9? They're 27-9. They're 2.5 games clear of anybody in the West or the East, and nobody has any respect for them. So if, it's like, are you men or mice? Because they just got challenged last night, and we will see how they respond to that challenge through the second half and going into the playoffs, because if they're made of anything of substance, they will respond well to this.
But for the people that are saying Donovan Mitchell got disrespect, Chris, I want to, before you go, Chris, I want to ask, for the people that are saying Donovan Mitchell's getting disrespected, so I'm going to say some guards. Are you going to take him, or are you going to take Luka, Dame, Steph Curry, D-Book, Bradley Beal, James Harden, Kyrie Irving? Of those guys, who you taking off and going putting Donovan Mitchell in front of?
Well, Shannon.
Nobody.
Yeah, but the obvious answer is Pandemic P. You take Donovan Mitchell over Pandemic P, who's been a fourth quarter disaster in the last 4 nights.
Skip, hold on. But he plays for your guy. He plays for your team, and you want to take...
Shannon, remember, KD took Zach LaVine and Julius Randle over Donovan Mitchell. I hear you. I mean, maybe you could try to argue Devin Booker if you want, but I like Book. They're both pretty much similar. But the question, Skip, you said it. What are the Utah Jazz made of? Because we saw when they were up 3-1 over Denver, and all of a sudden people started expecting them, okay, this team is really good. They folded. And now even, I don't want to make too much out of the last couple of weeks, but I believe they've lost 4 of their last 7. So people have been talking about them and hyping them up and how good they are. And now all of a sudden expectations brings pressure. Are they really that good? It's going to be interesting to watch them over the second half, because you're right. They have raised the bar, and now all eyes are on them. And they're trying to do something we just haven't seen done. Even, they don't have superstars. They don't have one. So you can't even compare them to the Dallas team that beat LeBron in 2011. At least they had Dirk Nowitzki and they had older stars like Jason Kidd and guys like that. You go back to Detroit in 2004 that beat the Shaq Kobe Lakers. I mean, Chauncey Billups, Rip Hamilton, Rasheed Wallace, Ben Wallace, those weren't superstars, but they were all stars. This Utah team is trying to do it with a different formula that hasn't been done. And so I think that's part of why people aren't really buying into him either, other than these analytics guys who want to point to all their ball movement and all that stuff.
So real quick, last point of order for Chris.
Go ahead.
In 2011, the Mavericks didn't beat the Heat. LeBron beat the Heat.
Oh.
Am I right?
Hey, Chris.
They should have won that. They had him. They had him.
That was,
he didn't get it done.
That same, hold up. You know that's the same Mavericks team that beat the two-time defending champ Lakers, swept them. They took, what did they do to Oklahoma City? Took them apart. What did they do to the Spurs? Took them apart. But now on LeBron, I forgot about that. So we ain't gonna talk about what they did to Kobe and Pau Gasol. The two-time defending champs swept them.
I thought LeBron was the GOAT.
I forgot that.
But Shannon.
No, you told me at that time it was Kobe. Yes.
They relaxed.
But
they went up 2-1. They had that.
No, they relaxed in game one when they had that 16-point lead and they let the Mavericks come back and win. They relaxed in game one. They should have won that series 4-1.
No mercy.
It's now been 5 years since the 2016 draft, and NFL.com released an article redoing it with 2020 hindsight. Dak Prescott jumped all the way up to the first overall pick from his original selection in the 4th round. And on the flip side, the real number 1 pick, Jared Goff, fell to the 41st selection in the redraft. So, Shannon, do you agree with this?
Hell no. Based off what? Dak's played 5 years, won 1 playoff game. He won 2 division titles. Jared Goff has won 2 division titles, and he's taken a team to the Super Bowl. Okay, I get he's gotten traded. It's easy to say, well, he's gotten traded. He's on a new team. Carson Wentz is on a new team. But what has Dak? Now, if you want to say Patrick Mahomes should have been the first pick of his draft, nobody's going to refute that. But I need you to show me empirical evidence that says Dak Prescott has been so much better. And where are these championships to validate this argument? To say he's won 1 playoff game, which is fewer than what Jared Goff has won, that he should go over Jared Goff and Jared Goff is going to a Super Bowl? Are we looking at just because Jared Goff is no longer with his original team? This is absurd. Now, if you want to say maybe Derrick Henry, who's a 2-time rushing champ, who's one guy who got 2,000 yards in 1 playoff game, okay. Jalen Ramsey, Joey Bosa, Tyreek Hill, I would even give you those. But I need to see something other than a bunch of stats that says Dak Prescott should have been the number 1 pick in the draft. Based off what? What have the Cowboys won? They've missed the playoffs just as many times as they've made it. And Dak should be number 1? This is absurd. This is laughable.
Thank you. You finally turned back into Shannon Sharp, Pro Football Hall of Famer.
But he still should get paid.
I have lost you over the last 4 or 5 months because suddenly you have become Dak Prescott's biggest fan and defender. And you've been telling me for weeks on end on this show that he now deserves close to Patrick Mahomes' money. And I ask you, when did Dak Prescott turn into Patrick Mahomes? Well, it's when Jerry done him wrong and didn't pay him. Pay the man. And I keep saying, pay him what? Mahomes' money or close to? He's not worth it. And all of a sudden, there's this runaway train of Dak support. And, of course, ironically, I have been the biggest defender, and nobody has applauded Dak Prescott more publicly than I have over the last, going on 5 years. But, again, reality is reality, and all of a sudden he vaults to the top of this draft. And then my other question is, Shannon, when did Jared Goff turn into Josh Rosen? I mean, let's not forget. he's a two-time Pro Bowler, and in 2018, the season they wound up in the Super Bowl, he was graded as the 8th best quarterback in Pro Football by Pro Football Focus, and he finished 10th in QBR. So he was a top 10 quarterback. And remember, head-to-head with Dak Prescott in the playoff game out here in L.A. at the Coliseum, it came down to a fateful 3rd and 7 play coming out of the 2-minute warning from the Rams' 28-yard line. Dak had started to heat up. The score was 30-22 Rams. And Sean McVay called a bootleg, a rollout for Jared Goff. Remember what happened, Shannon? He kept the football and he ran with it for 11 yards, and I was done. Jared Goff made that play, and he made enough plays to get them. Obviously, they got help from the referees, but he made enough plays to get them through New Orleans to New England in the Super Bowl, and he did not play well in that Super Bowl. We all know that. But if you look at his numbers from 2017 to 2019, Jared Goff, he was 6th in the NFL in completions, and he tied for 5th in touchdowns. Well, that could make him edge of a top 5 quarterback. And obviously, the Rams had some misgivings about him, struggled some last year, yet they still got to the playoffs. And yet when they had an opportunity, that organization, that executive board of theirs, it will plunge. And when they said, we could get Matthew Stafford, and I do think he's a diamond in the rough. I think he's a top 5 quarterback who's been toiling in obscurity in Detroit for all these years for a bad franchise and a bad football team. And I do think he's an upgrade over Jared Goff. And so they plunged. And I don't blame him for that, but that doesn't completely disqualify Jared Goff to the 31st pick in the first round of that draft. That is insane and just silliness, because somebody looking for a semblance of a quarterback would have taken Jared Goff before 31 in that draft.
Exactly. Skip, if you remember, I think it was 2017 when the Cowboys had the Rams down, and Jared Goff led that comeback in Dallas.
No, he did.
And they just beat him out here. So he's, if I'm not mistaken, Skip, he might be 3-0 against Dak Prescott. So I just don't get it. I get Dak has played. I think Dak has played well considering where he's drafted. He's played above where he should have been drafted.
Absolutely.
But to say he should have been the number 1 overall pick, Skip, if he had Mahomes' credentials, he's been an MVP. He's taken a team to a Super Bowl, won one, gone to another. Skip, you get no argument from me, Skip. I say, you know what? They're absolutely right. But because he's won 1 playoff game, he's won 2 division titles, Jared Goff has just as many division titles, more playoff victories, and he should be 31 and Dak should be drafted number 1. What evidence? Because I guess, Skip, Dak is the only one that's with his original team of the quarterbacks that were selected in that draft. I guess that's it. But there are other players, like I said, Joey Bosa, Jalen Ramsey, Derrick Henry, Tyreek Hill.
Yep.
But to say Dak, Skip, from the 4th round, based on what he has some stats, I don't know, is his stats that much better than Jared Goff's as far as yards? Passing yards, touchdowns, QBR. Are they that much better than Jared Goff that you're like, yep, Dak should have been the number 1 overall pick? I don't see it.
And Shannon, I know I keep
he still should get paid.
Yeah, I got it, but I keep beating this drum until there's going to be a hole in it. But I cannot defend that over Dak Prescott's last 17 starts, he's 6-11. Not all his fault, but some his fault. And as you know and I know, down the stretch 2 years ago, after a hot start over the last 13 games, I'm going to remind you again, you gave him 7 Fs, as in flunk, as in fail. And it was hard for me to argue against those Fs. Maybe they were Ds, but the point was he just wasn't very good. He was very disappointing to me. Yeah. And in the end, even last year, I know the stats look good, but you kept saying empty calories because they had the massive, outrageous, miraculous comeback against the Falcons at home. They were down 29-10 at halftime, and they came back and stole that game. And without that one, he would have started out 1 and if you'd given the Giants, it could have been 1-4 because he was trailing for a while against the Giants. So, again, he did not get off to the greatest start last year either. So, again, that's the guy you say would have been a slam dunk number 1 overall? No.
Yeah, I mean, Skip, there have been some guys. I mean, you look at Michael Thomas, Zeke and obviously Jalen Ramsey, Joey Bosa was in that same draft.
Yeah.
But I just don't get, Skip, how you gonna say a guy that's won 2 division titles in 1 playoff game should go from the 4th round. Should he have been a first rounder? Yes. Should he been a number 1 overall pick given what he's done? I don't think so, Skip. I think that is a huge leap, a monumental leap.
Which is why, in the end, he's not going to get a long-term deal holding on and holding out for the kind of money he wants, which is close to Mahomes' money.
Unfortunately, I know, Shannon, you're trying to help the guy get his money, but when you put it that way, it's a good point, Skip.
No mercy.
A panel of NBA experts voted for every franchise's most memorable dunkers. While some teams were no-brainers, that included dunk contest participants like Michael Jordan, Dominique Wilkins, Julius Erving, and Vince Carter. But 4 of the 30 teams were represented by players who have never participated in a dunk contest. LeBron, Grant Hill, Russell Westbrook, and John Morant. So, Shannon, how disappointed are you, really, that LeBron never did a dunk contest?
I'm not disappointed at all because the dunk contest was never that important to LeBron James. I think he came in with a mission. He wanted to be the greatest player, and the dunk contest was not going to help, was not going to give him credibility in that department when it comes to being one of the all-time great players. Now, I get that some of the all-time great players have entered the contest. You look at Michael Jordan, for one. You look at Dr. J, some of the all-time greats, but that was never Kobe Bryant. But Skip, Dominique, that was never LeBron. When I look at LeBron, I say he's a power dunker. He's not a creative dunker. And so for me, although it would have been nice, but I never went to the next season like, man, I can't wait to see LeBron enter this dunk contest. And I remember one year, Skip, he was at the dunk contest and he teased it where I think he tweeted out, next year, I'm there. It never came to fruition. But Skip, I'm not disappointed that LeBron James has never entered a dunk contest because I don't really think that was something that was ever high up on his priority list. I think of all things being equal, I'm more shocked that he hasn't entered a three-point competition because that seems to be where his game is kind of headed now, Skip, more so than dunking. Yeah, he'll occasionally dunk, but I'm not disappointed that LeBron hasn't entered the dunk contest because I don't really think it was ever that important to him.
Shannon, quick point of order. He would get humiliated in the three-point shootout.
No, it wouldn't. He probably win. He probably win, and you'd be sick.
Are you
serious?
Sick. You are delusional.
Yeah.
That's what you are. Okay, back to the dunk contest. So there are 4 players in history who ESPN has named the greatest dunker of their franchise's history who have not participated in the dunk contest. So Grant Hill was named the Pistons' greatest dunker, and I never considered Grant Hill much of a dunker at all. I remember, break dunks were two-handed off, left foot, just real average, commonplace, get it done kind of dunks.
Right.
Take care of business, but there was no contest dunking from Grant Hill that I remember. Russell Westbrook?
No.
Yes, I could see that, and I'm a little surprised he didn't do a dunk contest because I think he would have had a shot at winning. And John Morant, obviously just a rookie last year, although this year, I must say, I would like to have seen Ja in this one because it's pretty no-name, and I would have given him a great chance. And
yes.
What was his calling card coming out of college? Man, he was a YouTube dunk phenomenon, right?
Yeah, he was a high flyer, Skip. And I agree with you. Had Zion, had Ja Morant been in the dunk contest, I think we would have seen the buzz. But when you got a guy, Skip, Anthony Simons has 2 dunks on the season. Cassius Stanley has spent the majority of his time in the G League. And the other guy, Obi Toppin, I don't even know if he's a starter. So you got 3 guys that really no one knows of, and one guy is in the G League, and the other guy has 2 dunks.
Okay, so back in the day, as you point out, Dominique did 5 dunk contests. Michael Jordan did 3 dunk contests. Clyde Drexler did 4. Dwight Howard, as we started to transition to the modern age here, he did 4. And Kobe did one,
Right.
Vince did one, Blake Griffin obviously did one that we'll never forget. Giannis did one, Paul George has
Right.
done a couple, Zach LaVine has done a couple, Dame did one, Donovan Mitchell did one. Yet, LeBron opened the Pandora's box because LeBron was shrewd enough to say, well, yeah, I am, to your point, I'm a power dunker, and I don't really want the pressure to come up with a bunch of skit dunks that might or might not work. And I think LeBron didn't want to risk his mystique, his high-flying mystique, his sneaker-selling mystique by potentially losing the one dunk contest that he would participate in. Yet I think if LeBron had participated in one certainly early in his career, you know how the judging goes, it would have been so weighted and slanted toward LeBron, it would have just been tens across the board. And I don't care if LeBron just did some standard power dunk, I think he would have won whatever dunk contest he would have participated in.
Skip, but you knew after the first 5 years, and normally most guys, Skip, whether they participate in the dunk contest within their first 5 years, and you know once you got past that, and even though LeBron was like 23 and a lot of the other guys, I think you said Michael entered 3 of them,
Yep.
and I think it was like his last was what, 88 in the Chicago Stadium where he lost when he beat Dominique. He got that 50 took up from the free throw line. Skip.
Yep.
So at that point in time, Jordan probably was 26, maybe 26, 27,
Yeah.
something like that.
Okay.
So normally guys within their first 5 years, they go ahead and get it out the way. And I figure, Skip, once he didn't do it within his first 5 years, what the hell he out there doing a dunk contest in year 10? He damn sure wasn't going to do it in year 15, and now in year 18, it's all but over with, Skip. Maybe the skills challenge is something, Skip, where you dribble the ball, you lay the ball up, you hit a free throw, you throw the ball through the tie, you go down and try to hit a three at the other end. Something like that. But the dunk contest days for LeBron is over.
Well, to your point, there was that 1 year when I believe it was Cheryl Miller on TNT, he said, next year I will do it. So he didn't just drop a hint. He actually said he would. He teased it, but he said, I'll do it next year. And next year never, never came. So in the end, that signaled others, hey, maybe this thing has gotten completely out of control where it's can you top this, where it's not just your dunking ability, it's your creative ability to come up with a stunt or a skit, a Saturday Night Live skit to match up with your dunk, because just dunking won't get it done anymore. Even Dwight Howard, he kept setting the bar higher and higher. Remember his cupcake dunk, and he would come up, he was very creative, but Dwight has more fun dunking than he does sometimes playing actual basketball. So in the end...
And think about, Skip, what we see.
Yep.
You remember what we saw from Aaron Gordon and what we saw from Zach LaVine? Skip, you got to spend time practicing those dunks. That ain't something that you just say, okay, I'm going to do this.
No.
I think I can do this in competition without practicing.
That is correct.
Those dunks. So and LeBron wasn't going to devote that kind of time.
No.
If he's going to devote that kind of time to practice, it's going to be on his game, trying to get better in game, not some exhibition dunk contest.
Which is why the three-point shootout is loaded once again, because you just show up and shoot, right? You're always practicing your three-point shot.
And that's where the game is headed, Skip.
No mercy.
So Alabama has 2 receivers projected to go in the first round of this year's NFL draft in Devontae Smith and Jalen Waddle. Well, both players played quarterbacks Tua Tagovailoa and Mac Jones and have the same opinion when it comes to choosing one guy under center. Both said in interviews leading up to the draft they would take Mac at QB over Tua. And this really comes at a rough time for Tua, as rumors have circulated that the Dolphins have been looking to upgrade at quarterback. So, Shannon, are you losing any faith in your man Tua in Miami?
I am not. I'm looking forward to him, Skip, getting a year further removed from having that gruesome, that awesome, that terrible injury where he dislocated his hip, fractured his hip, and ended up having to have surgery, and then spent the entire offseason rehabbing instead of training. So I'm looking forward to him being a year removed from that and him being able to train and get back to the Tua that I believe that he can be. Now, I don't know, Skip. It's going to be interesting to see, because the thing that set Tua apart from Mac Jones is that he was more mobile than Mac Jones. Well, now Mac Jones is just as accurate, Skip. He just set the NCAA record for the best completion percentage, in NCAA history. He threw 41 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. And the question that Mac Jones is going to face is the same one that Tua had. Bro, you had 4 number 1 receivers you throw it to. So how good is he? That's what the question that you had. He had a track. You say he had a track team. He had Jerry Jeudy. He had Henry Ruggs. He had Devontae Smith. He had Jalen Waddle. He had Najee Harris. He's about to have 3 offensive linemen that go in the first round with Jonah Williams going to Cincinnati. Yep. He had Wills go to Cleveland. And now Leatherwood. His center was the Remington Award winner.
Yep.
Skip, and I get it. Because if you look at the numbers that Devontae put up, great numbers playing with Tua. But he won the Heisman Trophy. He was AP Player of the Year. He had won all these awards playing with Mac Jones. Mac Jones is going to probably get Devontae Smith drafted in the first round, a top 5 pick. So for me, Skip, I'm not surprised that they said this because they've had their best years with Mac Jones. Mac Jones looks the part, Skip.
Yep.
And I can see why people say coming out of college, he compares favorable to Tom Brady coming out of college. Extremely accurate, extremely smart, lacks mobility. So I can see that, Skip. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out.
So, Shannon, I hope I'm wrong about this, but I tried to tell you so before to his draft. I just don't see it. And then the multiple surgeries, the knee surgery leading to the hip surgery you just discussed, took just enough of his mobility away that he became average. His arm is average. Yeah. His accuracy is average. He's about 6 feet tall. He's not physical. He's not physically gifted. He's a great kid. I think his leadership qualities are strong. Yet players know, and now 2 players who caught footballs from him at Alabama are just that. I watched both the interviews, and they were like, oh, it's Mac. You know, like there was no hesitation, there was no apology. It's just Mac. Mm-hmm. I do agree with you. Yeah. I still have that little voice in the back of my head about Mac Jones saying, well, wait a second. All that talent, all those receivers, that running back, those linemen, man, it's like, are you sure? Yet the great Mel Kiper has gone all the way to he's Brady-esque, and I see it, and boy, he didn't mess it up, I can say that. And his mobility, thanks to Tua's surgery, was a little better than Tua's. So in the end, Tua's under fire already in Miami from his teammates. Yeah. And now 2 ex-teammates at Alabama have just shrugged and said, sorry, it's Mac. I think the Dolphins made a big mistake taking him that high in the draft, and I don't think he's ever going to quite be able to live up to it. God bless him. And again, I hope I'm wrong. I hope he gets a fresh start elsewhere. But it sounds like that his future is no longer in Miami because it sounds like the locker room is not buying into him. And in the end, that means the head coach and the executives are not going to buy.
Well, Skip, if you're telling me that the injuries have robbed him, the hip surgeries, the knee surgeries, the ankle surgeries have robbed him of his mobility, because Mac Jones is just as accurate. The thing that he lacked that Tua had was mobility. Well, if he can be just as accurate in the drop back style, well, that's not what Tua is because he's undersized. We don't normally see except there are a handful of guys. Drew Brees has made a career as a pure drop back passer, but normally guys on the smaller side, Skip, they're going to need to be mobile. They're going to need to be able to get outside the pocket, a la Russell Wilson, a la Baker Mayfield, a la Kyler Murray. Guys that are on the smaller side need mobility to escape the pocket or throw from passing lanes. And so it's going to be very interesting to see. I just believe with a year removed from that surgery and being able to train instead of rehab, let's see what he is this year, Skip.
Okay. Good luck.
Oh, I hope you're right, because I don't want this to be one and done for Tua. I remember sitting between you guys, and he had that quote that he thought the NFL should be harder. I mean, that's not looking too hard.
Yeah, exactly.
Those words from Tua at this point. I remember thinking, don't jinx it. No mercy. NBA All-Star Game rosters are set, and LeBron is looking to remain undefeated in the current format. While the King has won the game the past 3 seasons, he only won the MVP in one of those, with Durant and Kawhi winning the last 2. So, Shannon, who wins All-Star Game MVP on Sunday?
Well, I mean, the part of me wants to say LeBron's going to rest and let some of the young guys get it, but normally when he gets into that moment, Skip, he doesn't back off. He's probably going to end up playing somewhere around 20, 24, 26 minutes, which is a lot for an all-star game. So I expect LeBron to try to go for it, but I'm going to say Giannis or Luka. Jaylen Brown, Skip, is from Marietta. He's the only one that I can think that might, but I'm gonna say Luka or Giannis.
Well, you didn't pick one, but that's okay because it's my turn. And since I have 2 cases bet on Team Underdog, I am going with the season MVP favorite, Joel Embiid. It is his time. Feed the beast. Embiid, All-Star MVP.
Man, you know good well they don't feed the post in that All-Star game.
They will in this one.
They shoot threes.
He will run the floor and dunk you silly.
You know he's not running the floor in the All-Star game.
No. LeBron said yesterday he's feeling rested. He's ready. He's ready to go. Skip, Shannon, great
LeBron.
job
I got
today.
LeBron.
I have a feeling we'll have plenty to talk about on Monday. We're back at the same time. The Herd is on now. Have a good one.